And it just goes to show, by the way, Charlie Kirk, who a week ago said, I'm doing a focus group. I'm open to a contrary opinion on Israel and Palestine. He's now doing damage control on their behalf. And one has to wonder, is he being paid by Israel? Without a doubt, the answer is yes. For Charlie Kirk to go on his show today and say, there is no forced starvation, here comes a rabbi to tell us why, without a shadow of a doubt, he is being paid by them.
Perhaps the least shocking development in this timeline, Charlie Kirk did indeed bring on a rabbi to his show to explain away all the reasons why Israel is not starving Gazans, and that anything negative is Hamas and Hamas propaganda. This segment did not go unnoticed by right-wing Twitter. While he ultimately wasn't ratioed by internet standards, he did receive a great amount of pushback. Ryan Dawson, a leading voice on the Epstein files and their relation to Mossad, writes simply, "You are an irredeemable piece of shit."
He's got a point.
Jake Shields, a former UFC champion, also adds his thoughts. "You are making excuses for genocide. What the fuck is wrong with you?"
He's cooking that! Like cooking him good!
But without further ado, here are some of the arguments that were presented by Kirk and the rabbi.
I hate being lied to, and I hate being propagandized. And this weekend, there was an all-out propaganda campaign trying to make it seem as if Israel is intentionally starving the people of Gaza. I hate being lied to, especially by the media networks. They lied to us about COVID. They lied to us about the vaccines. They lied to us about open borders. They lied to us Hunter Biden laptop. Joining us now is Rabbi Walicki, a great friend, and thank you so much for defending me the other day. Rabbi Walicki, you're also the YouTube, people can find you on YouTube, Israel 365. Rabbi, let's just go through the facts here, and then let's get into the lies. What is the situation in Gaza as the truth would bear it out, not the New York Times propagandist network?
Well, if we're talking about the starvation lie, and thank you, Charlie, thank you for having me on to talk about this. It's so important because this is really pure propaganda, as you say. So since the beginning of the war, since October 7th, the whole issue of the food getting into Gaza and how much food is getting in has been weaponized by Hamas and by the whole pro-Hamas crowd. And what they're doing most recently is claiming that there's a starvation crisis. The quantities of food, I'm not going to get into the weeds of the numbers, but the quantities of food that have been brought into the Gaza Strip since the beginning of the war and month over month is enough to feed the Gaza Strip, according to the World Food Program's numbers for what it takes to feed people, for longer than this war has gone on, for about 27 months worth of food. And there's plenty of food getting into the Gaza Strip. But what's happening is that Hamas is trying to perpetuate this narrative that Gazans are starving because starting about 2 months ago, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is run by Americans and is in cooperation with the Israelis, has started distributing food, started distributing humanitarian aid directly to the people of Gaza. And why is that important? Because until they started doing that, the only way for Gazans to get food was to get it from Hamas. All of the tons and tons of food, all the truckloads of food that have been coming into the Gaza Strip as humanitarian aid since the beginning of the war until 2 months ago were brought in by United Nations organizations that were working hand in glove with Hamas. It was going directly to Hamas, and then Hamas would sell it at exorbitant prices to the people, hoard it for themselves, take all the fuel to fuel their war machine, use it to recruit new recruits into Hamas, and it was basically Hamas's oxygen. The estimates now by the United States, by the State Department, is that Hamas has made approximately $500 million just from selling aid to the people of the Gaza Strip since the war has began. So they started perpetuating this starvation narrative really just over the course of the last couple of weeks. It has no basis in fact. We see this even from the Gaza Health Ministry, which is Hamas's own numbers for casualties for deaths throughout this war. There's nobody dying of starvation in the Gaza Strip. But you could also see it looking at the pictures on your screen right now. We know what starving people look like. These are Gazans. They're not emaciated. They're not starving. The people of Gaza are not starving. But Hamas needs to perpetuate this narrative so that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is discredited and they could go back to the old system of all of the food and aid going through the UN to Hamas so they can retain control over the population and keep their cash flow going. There's a lot more to this story than that. I don't know how into the weeds you want me to go, but if people go to our YouTube channel, Israel 365 YouTube, we've been covering this for months.
Yes, so let's just put this picture up here. This is what really set me off. And these lies against Israel are relentless. So just to repeat what you're saying, Rabbi, you're saying that there is no starvation in Gaza. Is that correct?
Look, it could be that that in certain areas under Hamas control, where they still control things and are hoarding the food, that they're not distributing it in order to create more of a starvation and a desperation problem so that Gazans could be going hungry so that they can perpetuate the narrative. And that's not just, a conspiracy that I'm saying.
Nick Fuentes, catching wind of such absurdity, called Charlie Kirk out on a show last night, and he does not hold back.
And it just goes to show, by the way, Charlie Kirk, who a week ago said, I'm doing a focus group. I'm open to a contrary opinion on Israel and Palestine. He's now doing damage control on their behalf. And one has to wonder, is he being paid by Israel? Without a doubt, the answer is yes. For Charlie Kirk to go on his show today and say, there is no forced starvation, here comes a rabbi to tell us why. Without a shadow of a doubt, he is being paid by them. That is why he is doing damage control on their behalf, because he is on their payroll. And someone who is on the payroll of a foreign state making excuses for war crimes is not somebody that you can trust on anything. That's not somebody that you can take the good with the bad. How can anybody take him seriously as a Christian? How can you go up there and pretend to be a godly man? Why? Because you tell people to get married? Oh, look, I have my kid. You know, he posted the other day, he's on Fox and Friends, and his daughter runs up and jumps into his lap. And we're supposed to look at this carefully manicured public relations material and say, aw, what a family man. What a good Christian. He's practically a pastor, the way he evangelizes the young. Well, it's a good thing Charlie Kirk's daughter doesn't live in Gaza, because his daughter would have been fucking murdered. It's a good thing Charlie Kirk's daughter was born to a rich man in America who lies for a living and is paid by billionaires to do it, and wasn't born in Gaza. Because if Charlie Kirk, the family man, if him and his family were over there, if they were born in the wrong place at the wrong time, they would be getting shot in the back of the head for trying to get food and water while they were starving to death by the Israelis that they defend. And that's disgusting. It's especially disgusting in light of what he'll defend. Oh, look, his daughter's in the studio. She runs, oh, daddy. She runs up and jumps onto his lap. And then 2 days later, he goes on his show and says, they're babies. Babies are being starved to death. Well, Hamas is stealing the aid. They deserve it. It's collective guilt. They support Hamas. Release the hostages. It's sick. It's disgusting. And people need to push harder. We need to push for more. It's not good enough. Donald Trump throwing a little throwaway statement, oh, we need to get more food in there. Charlie Kirk saying, oh, I'll hear you out in Israel, but I'll basically do propaganda on their behalf. It's not good enough. You got to go, dude. You got to go. What has to happen with Charlie Kirk is one of two things. One, he needs to recant his support for Israel. Not I'm going to hear everybody out, you're not an anti-Semite. No, you need to come out and say, I took foreign money. I shilled for a foreign country, and I won't anymore. That's what we need to hear. That's option one. You can't take money from a foreign government and lie on their behalf and then say, oh, well, I'm just not going to be as aggressive anymore against and calling people anti-Semites and things like that. No, you need disclosure, you need accountability. Or two, you need to leave the stage. People cannot listen to somebody that they cannot trust. In particular, cannot trust that they're not taking money from a foreign government. You can't have it that way. Can't call yourself Turning Point USA. I'm an ally of the president. We're waving the flag for the young people and do the rest.
Someone cooked here.
Recant or retreat? I don't know about you, but I can see Charlie retiring from politics for good before I can see him renounce his heretical view of Israel. And let's be honest, it's not just Charlie. These Israel First pundits are ubiquitous, with multiple coming onto the scene in just this last year, like Misfit Patriot, Emily Austin, and Deborah Leah. But Nick is ultimately correct. It is good that we have the TPUSA leadership on their heels, but not good enough. We must push continually until they are, in his words, ushered off center stage. I wanted this video to be comprehensive as well, and one aspect that hasn't been fully addressed yet is the rebuttal of what is actually happening with the starvation in Gaza. So here is Nick just moments earlier from the previous clip.
But I want to talk specifically about the charge of starvation, because everyone's talking about it, and now it has sort of become a debate. And as usual, this is something that we see it with our eyes. There's pictures, there's videos. You can see it happening. And by the way, it's happening in two ways. On the one hand, the Palestinians are being starved to death because the food and water and other supplies have been cut off. At the same time, distribution centers have been set up, and this is just as evil. When the Palestinians go to retrieve the food aid, they get shot. The Israelis are shooting into the crowds of people that are trying to get food and trying to get water and everything else. So Trump says, well, they're not getting the food because it's behind a fence. Well, that's part of it, but I mean, the real reason people aren't getting the food is because they're getting shot. People are driving to the aid distribution centers, and according to American officials, they're being used as target practice by the Israelis and shot, even if they're unarmed, even if they're defenseless. Many of them families in their cars, by tanks, by snipers. That's a part of it also. We see it happening. And like I said, we see this. There's videos, pictures, there's reports of it. And like with everything else, there stands the Jewish media, there stands the Israeli lobby telling us, don't believe your lying eyes. And they're telling us, well, that's not real. If there are people starving, and they deny that there are, which how does that even make sense? They say nobody's starving, they're making up the statistics, but if they are, it's because Hamas is stealing the food. That's the line they're going with. It's always Hamas's fault. When Israel blows up a church, oh, well, we were aiming for Hamas. If Israel blows up a school filled with children, well, Hamas was operating beneath the school and using them as human shields. If children are starving to death, it's because Hamas stole all the food. Not because Israel is not allowing it to get in, it's because Hamas is stealing it. This is the argument that they're using. And I actually saw today Charlie Kirk, of all people. This is why I say it's so surprising what Trump said. Charlie Kirk, like the rest of MAGA world, like the rest of the pro-Israel right-wingers, posted an 11-minute video to Twitter today saying, and he co-hosted a rabbi on his show as well, saying exactly that. He said there is no starvation. Israel's not forcibly starving anybody. Nobody's hungry. He said, and if people are hungry, he brings on a pro-Israel rabbi, a Jewish rabbi, to defend this with him. He says, if people are starving, it's because Hamas is taking all the food. The Israelis are trying so hard. The Europeans, the Americans, the United Nations, they have set up aid distribution centers, which Israel has graciously allowed, but it's Hamas which is taking the food and then selling it at exorbitant prices to fuel their war machine. Their war machine. Okay? Israel has a nuclear bomb and a standing army and a government, and Hamas is stealing what little grain is coming in to fuel their war machine. Their war machine of what? Paragliders? War machine. You can't even call it a machine. They're practically fighting with sticks and stones. Their war machine? How did they perpetrate October 7th? Motorbikes and hang gliders? They have a war machine now? It's just so brazen. But this is what they're going with. We have pictures on the covers of magazine of people that are starving to death, and they say, oh, well, that's just Hamas.
And if you are still unsure of how fake the claims made by Charlie and company are, an excerpt from the Jerusalem Post in corroboration with the New York Times reported that IDF officials denied that Hamas routinely steals humanitarian aid. This is in addition to an internal U.S. analysis that also found no evidence of systematic theft by Hamas. To conclude, it appears that Charlie's grip on the helm of conservative politics is slipping, and slipping fast. And if the only person you can bring on as a supporting voice against what Israel is being accused of doing is a rabbi, it's not looking good. But like any other growth phase, there is bound to be growing pains, and it will ultimately be up to Charlie if he wishes to retain credibility or continually serve as a foreign mouthpiece. That is where I will leave it. Let me know your thoughts or if I missed anything, and like always, I will see you guys in the comments. Peace.
Smash that like button.